Hey everyone, welcome. Guess where you are? You're in the Jay Goot Village. See at the bottom. Welcome to Jay Goot Village, a free community where we teach anyone, and we mean anyone, the basics of how to travel anywhere in the world for free. And Jay Goot, by the way, stands for Just Get Out of Town. I'm with Joel again. Hi, Joel.
Hey Mia, how you doing?
Good. Thanks for being the travel Yoda, as I like to call you, and coming up with Jay Goot. And here we are.
Yeah, another fun Monday. Thanks for joining us on a holiday.
Well, I
We'll probably
posted on
get a
my
little different
Facebook.
crowd today because of the holiday.
I think so. I posted on my Facebook because because travel never takes a vacation. That never takes a holiday. That's why we're here today. We said we weren't going to be, but we are. And we're going to talk about flights today, right?
Yeah, yeah, the famous $120 rule is getting an update.
I know. I like
Um,
that. A new
yeah.
face, a facelift, if you will. All right. So let me do some housekeeping and then we're going to jump into it because you always have a lot to say and we're going to pack this in for the hour, right? So,
Yeah.
right, streamyard.com/Facebook, and we can see your comments. I mean, we know it shows up in the live stream, but we want to pull up your name, such for instance, like, look at this. Somebody says, I need to renew my membership. Okay, that sounds good. Now, if you haven't gone to Facebook or streamyard.com/Facebook, it looks like this. And somebody said woohoo, and we're excited about that. So, as
We
usual,
don't know who they are.
yeah. We also have our experts in the audience who are answering questions. So we have Carrie. I know that Brooke from above is here today. We've got, and he's coming in from Vegas, which I love. So your comments count towards a $100 travel savings card that we'll be giving away at the end of the hour. And that's going to be to a random number generator. Are we doing any other travel savings cards? Or are we just packing this in with a bunch of info today?
I think today's going to be a full day, so I didn't fit any other savings cards. If any pop up while we're talking, maybe, but we'll do the random drawing for participation at the end. Speaking of participation, I see a bunch of people sharing where they're calling in from. Let's have everyone do that. And share where they're from, because we're going to do a live demo today, and we may as well go with the most popular area. So let us know the closest major airport that you're from, and we'll do some live demos from your area when we get to that point.
Okay, this is fun. So this is great. We've got Raleigh, Denver. Hi, Denver. Houston. We have so many comments coming in so fast. This is great.
All right.
Seattle. So Massachusetts. All right, great. So this will be good. You're going to have your choice of what hubs to choose from, right?
Yeah, we'll do our best, and maybe you and Brooke can keep track in the background what we've got the most of. I see a lot of LA. I see a lot of Denver. I see some.
Orlando, Vegas, Charlotte.
Yeah.
Oh, this is great. Okay, good. Yeah, Brooke, if you want to let us know what would be a good one. Tampa, that's where I am right now. Actually, we're traveling all over the place. So, all right, good to know. So again, go to streamyard.com/Facebook, give it permission. That's the only thing you're giving it permission to do. And that way we can see your name. But other than that, I want to know what you have fluffed and buffed with this $120 rule, Joel.
Yeah, well, and so this has been a big source of confusion. A lot of people have been asking, is it for one way? Is it for round trip? Is this for first class? Is this for coach, and so on? And it's kind of all of the above, but you got to know all the rules for how you do it. So we thought we'd do two things. One, time for a refresher course on how to use what was formerly known as the $120 rule. We're giving an update to that. And then also the rules of how to apply it, because it's really important to make sure that you know those rules so you know at a glance whether a flight deal you're looking at is a good deal or not. And when I say good deal, I'm talking about the Jay Goot definition of a good deal, not just anyone's definition, because we're a little picky. We like to try, we'd like to not waste the majority of our vacation budget on flights and hotels, because we know how not to. So we're going to talk about that today.
Great.
Well, with that said, let's jump right in. I took the liberty of just including some photos from clients. This happens to be Brooke's kids. They take about half of their trips on cash deals and maybe a third or half of their trips on points deals. I think the first dozen trips that they took were all cash deals. They were all deals that passed the $120 rule, or what was formerly called the $120 rule. We'll get to that. And this is them in a first class flight that they got, I believe, through an upgrade because of a dirt cheap flight that they found in coach. And so today we're going to address the most commonly asked question we get all the time. People post it in our Facebook group, and they just say, "Oh, I'm looking at this flight at this time. Is it a good deal?" And what we want is for you to be able to know that at a glance by Jagut standards. So we're going to talk about that today. And so you may have heard of the $120 rule. We've been talking about that for a good couple of years now, but we've decided, and by the way, this is a picture of Stephanie, one of our travel coaches, and she kind of helped us spearhead really making sure this was an accurate change that we're making. Because what we found, we've been saying still apply the $120 rule, round up because of post-COVID conditions. Supply is still down, demand is still way up, and although coach prices have settled down a bit, business class prices have stayed astronomically expensive for cash. And so we decided that since we're doing a refresher course on the $120 rule, we're going to go ahead and update it for post-COVID conditions, because it's been 2 years since vaccinations and the world opened up again, and business class prices haven't come back down. So this is an adjustment to the $120 rule, and we're going to talk about what that means now. So now we're no longer going to talk $120 rule. We're going to talk about the 30, 60, 90 rule, as in $30, $60, or $90, depending on the flight you're looking at. Here is a picture of Melanie. Melanie is one of our first clients. We think she's number 9, the 9th customer to ever join our coaching program. We still got to straighten out the accounting on that, but she's definitely an OG. And no rhyme or reason, I just included it because that was a flight that she took their family to on Dubai because of a trip that passed the $120 test. So the 30, 60, 90 rule, this is basically saying if you're flying in coach, you want to pay $30 an hour. If you're flying in a premium economy, you want to pay no more than $60 an hour. Business or first class, $90 an hour. That simple. So depending on whatever flight you're looking at, those are the rules you should apply to the flights you're looking at. A few important things before we break that down a little more is, this is all based on direct flight times, regardless of whether you're looking for a flight with a layover or a stopover or anything like that. This is direct, what it would be direct from A to B. That's it. So if you want to fly to Greece and you're in New York and that's a 9-hour flight, 8-hour flight, it doesn't matter if you have layovers. This is just to establish a baseline of what we consider a good deal for a 9-hour flight, plain and simple. So you want to ignore layovers or multiple flights. You're looking for total flight time from A to B, and that's your baseline of what you want to determine is a good deal for that trip. So if it's one way, you just count the outbound time. So in other words, if this is a 2-hour flight from LA to Denver, that's 2 hours one way, so 4 hours round trip. And if you're looking at a coach deal, that's $30 times 4 hours. By Jagut standards, you should strive to pay no more than $120 for that flight. Now, that doesn't mean that if you're looking at specific place, specific time, and you're looking at $150, doesn't mean it's not a good deal. But by Jagut standards, we try to aim for something that passes that $30 an hour test. So you use that as a guideline, and that will tell you of should I wait? Should I pounce on this deal or whatever? There are often deals that are way better than that. Snatch them up because they're so cheap. Who cares I mean, you can usually adjust if they go down, but you can't adjust if they go up.
And
If they're
Joel,
much higher, that's probably worth considering waiting.
I just was going to say, I agree with Brooke's comment here. So thank you for this. A lot of us suck in math, so we need these simple equations. And I love how you're breaking it down.
Well, and that's the beauty of our Trip Alert service. So for our coaching clients, we believe so much in rule number 1. We look the deals up for them, and most of them you can just assume that they pass the. I still say that a habit. I was about to say the $120 test, but
Right.
they pass the $30, $60, $90 test when we publish them. So you don't really need the math. If it's a deal you get from us and you're a coaching client, and you get that Trip Alert, we've kind of vetted it as one of the best deals out there that day.
Can I just pop this in here? He's talking about the Jay Goot Lounge, guaranteed strategies to travel and luxury for budget prices. Comment interested, and that's also for the coaching program you're talking about.
Yes. So yeah, here in Jay Goot Village, we meet once a week. We share tips for free to help you kind of get the hang of the Jay Goot way of travel. For those of you who want more hands-on help, we've got coaches who walk the walk. I saw pictures from 2 of our coaches who are traveling in Europe right now. And so, we've got experts who can help you if you're interested in fast tracking your learning curve on how to travel, like all the testimonials you see on our website. So let's kind of finish this out. Very, very important. If it's a one-way flight, apply $30, $60, or $90 to that one-way flight time. If it's a round trip flight, look up the flight time and double it, because you got to fly out there and you got to fly back. So in my LA to Denver example, that's 2 hours. If it's a round trip flight, I've got to use 4 hours times $30 for coach, $60 for premium economy, or $90 for business class. And we just lump business and first together because a lot of airlines only have business or first. But typically, like if it has both business and first, we don't typically, like, we're not going to pay astronomical prices for first class. Odds are, once you start getting up into that price bracket, like we don't want a $120 rule for first on top of business class, because usually by that point we're going to pay points, and we'll talk about that in the live demo. So yeah, one way, count outbound time, count both directions if round trip. If this is a multi-leg trip, that's where you'll want to do your assessment from A to B, then from B to C, then from C to D separately. Those are called open jaws, and it gets a little more complicated, but that's what happens when you do multi-leg trips. They are more complicated. So, kind of the breakdown of this, this is $30 per hour for economy. So in that LA example, I don't want to pay 4 hours times $30. That's $120 for a coach flight. Are there lots and lots of flights that are more expensive than that? Yes. But the whole idea of the Jay Goot way of travel is we're looking for the best 1% of deals, and we're scheduling trips or vacations around those. And a lot of people kind of think, well, I don't get to do that. We can all do that. Because these are like extra credit trips that you might not have been planning, but they're such good deals. Why not? Oh gosh, and I have a typo. Sorry, this second part here, $30 per hour of direct flight time for premium economy, that should have said $60. So apologies for that. Disregard bullet point number 2, that should say $60 per hour. So in my LA example, if it's premium economy, probably don't want to pay more than $240 for a round trip flight. If it's less than that, it's a pretty good deal. If it's more than that, it's not a good deal by Jay Goot standards. And then of course, $90 an hour. What is that? 360 for your 4-hour flight. And the beauty of this is this normalizes all flight times. Someone from New York or someone from LA, I have a testimonial I'll show from someone who found $267 flights from LA. Well, if they're from New York, those are probably even better deals. So you need to apply a different set of rules. And that's why this is really helpful, because it takes time in the air into account, and there usually is a correlation with price and flight time. And so this, I included a picture just as an example. We walk the walk. This is a trip that Michelle and I took. Why? Because it was $110 round trip. So, as an example, this was a 3-hour one-way direct flight, and it happened to be direct. Remember, if there was a layover, we don't care about that. We still use the direct flight time to determine our baseline of the most we want to pay. Because sometimes layovers happen. That's a part of travel, and we're not really going to worry about that. That's just more of a preference than a value. So 3-hour one-way flight, that's 6 hours round trip. We did take coach. My personal rule for myself and Michelle's in my agreement is if it's under 4 hours, we have no problem flying in coach. We save those lavish, expensive trips for 4 hours or longer. Those, it's a given that we're going to fly in business or first class. But less than that, it's a personal preference thing. To each their own, but these are good guidelines that you can use. So in this case, we flew down there in coach. The goal is to pay no more than $180. So when I've kind of had this rule in my head for nearly a decade. So when I found $110 flights, I look for them every day. I usually have a pretty good idea of what's a good deal where. And I picked up the phone. I said, Michelle, any chance you could take the day off of Thanksgiving, or the day after Thanksgiving holiday off? She said, sure. Where are we going? And we were on a plane. All we had to do was, she had to take an extra day off, and we had a great time in Mexico over Thanksgiving, thanks to $110 round trip flights. Why? Because those were 35% better than $180, which is, the max that you should pay for a 3-hour flight. If those were premium economy, maybe you could upgrade to premium economy, apply the rules at $60 an hour. If you're thinking about business or first, apply those rules of $90 per hour for business or first. So pretty straightforward. Write those numbers down: 30, 60, 90. Coach, premium economy, business or first. Make sense? Any questions we should address before we move on?
A couple fun comments. And Anthony, thank you for saying that, you were just testing to see if people were paying attention. And they were. We had a couple people said, I was just getting ready to type it. So good catch on that one. No, that's really simple. I appreciate that. I love this new fluffed and buffed version.
So let's address this with Ben. So Ben, this is something we've used for quite a while, and we'll do a live demo, and you can see there is a correlation with flight time and flight prices, assuming major international airports. Fly to small regional airports, these rules change, and again, this is a general rule of thumb, and my answer to that would be round up. If you're flying into a smaller regional airport, round up by maybe 30 or 40%, because those are more expensive to fly into. But for the most part, when you're applying this to, from a major international airport to a major international airport, as you'll see, these are pretty accurate rules of thumb. Another question. So real quick clarification. We are travel coaches. Most of us we travel more than average. We pay a lot less than average, and we can't earn points for you. We can't redeem points for you. We're not travel agents. We don't get paid to book flights for you. These are all very personal things. So we're travel coaches, and to answer the question of could a coach help me plan a trip? Yes, we have what are called checkpoints, and in our coaching program, we have a coach that helps you earn more points for every dollar you spend. We have a coach that makes sure you have the right credit cards in your wallet, because having the right credit cards in your wallet versus the wrong credit cards could mean the difference between getting $1,000 or $2,000 in free travel per year and 10 or 20 grand in free travel per year. We have a coach that teaches you to not ever waste points by finding deals that pass the 30, 60, 90 rule. And then, of course, our biggest goal is to help you stretch those points as far as possible. And we can't book the trip for you, but we can show you how to find those deals. So our coaching program, our goal is to teach you to fish instead of having you constantly dependent on having us find those deals for you.
We help you help you. How's that?
There we go.
Here's another quick question, because this kind of goes, somebody wanted to know with this trip specifically, did your accommodations negate any savings with combo? That's kind of the beauty of the flight, saving on the flights, because then you've got more money to pay for if you want for some lavish things, right?
And you flashed that comment.
Did your accommodations negate any savings? Meaning, like did you spend more once you got there, and it negated the savings that you the savings that you got with the airfare?
Well, so those are always things like, I mean, I'm never going to just book a flight and hope to find accommodations. You always do that research.
Right.
And in this case, we don't always recommend it, but this case to Cabo, I found it, and I think the flight was like $150, which again passed the test. And then by bundling it with accommodations, it got even cheaper. So, it's a very common assumption. Everyone's like looking for like the gotcha or the reason that vacations are expensive. I'll tell you the reason they're expensive: flights and hotels. But when you use rule 1 and schedule trips around cheap flights, you can fly in first class for less than coach prices. You can travel more often. And then for accommodations, there are ways to get discounts on cash accommodations, or you can use points and stay for free. So what we focus on at Jagoot is getting 60 to 90% off on average on all of our flights and all of our hotels. And when you do those two things, when you can consistently average 60 to 90% off of your flights and hotels, everything else becomes what I like to call who cares money. So your car rental's a little more expensive. Who cares? You saved 85% on your flight and hotel combo. Your dining is more expensive. Who cares? You saved 85% on your flight and hotels. So these are things that, we have a whole chapter in our book that is dedicated to mindset changes for those common objections that you have, because you're trained to have those objections because you spend a fortune on flights and hotels. But if you eliminate the problem, or 85% eliminate the problem of expensive flights and hotels, everything else becomes who cares money.
I love that. You said everybody's looking for the gotcha. Like, see, I told you it's expensive.
Yeah.
Working hard.
Yeah, when you travel the traditional way, you're forced to think about all that, because you drop 10 grand on flight and hotel, you've got hardly anything left for dining and excursions and activities and so on. When you spend less, you get to spend more on the stuff that matters a lot more.
So comment book, and Joel just mentioned that about our book that we have out, and we will drop a link for you so you can spend a very tiny amount of money to get this fabulous book.
Let's address Tiffany's question too. Again, you're looking for a gotcha. Our gotcha is we teach this information for free in hopes that you'll try it, believe in it, and spend a lot of money hiring us as coaches, because personal help from coaches is never cheap. And so like the gotcha there, we do, if you get one of the cards we recommend certain Chase cards and certain Amex cards and a couple other ones. And we do get referral fees if you recommend that. If you have a problem with that, type in chase.com and look it up from there. Or type in americanexpress.com and look up the credit cards from there. We're providing information. It is completely free. The reason for that is in hopes of you saying, well, that was a nice tip that they gave me. I'll go ahead and use their referral link. But that question is very well founded. Most other travel bloggers are compensated and they get commissions. We get points because we can do a lot more with points than commissions. Most travel bloggers do get referral points, and you do have to ask, like, what's in it for them? And is this really the best card for me? Just because, they said it's a great one, that might not mean so, because they're getting paid to say that.
And that is the difference, though, because their recommendations will change. Ours don't.
Ours have been the same for 5 years.
Yep.
Chase and Amex, because we can do more with that combo of cards than any other cards out there.
We know, boring, but it's us. We don't go change it.
And just as more proof, this is actually the last time Michelle and I went to Mexico City, and that's when we decided that we loved it so much that we would come back someday, which we just did a couple months ago, and try it for long term. So we went there a couple years ago. Why? Because of $160 round trip flights. Based on the 100, that's a 4-hour flight, so that's a screaming deal. And again, that was in coach, but we never buy basic economy because you want to be able to upgrade sometimes. And so that passed the test. 4-hour one way, 8-hour round trip, which is what we booked. So the rule is pay no more than $240 for coach, or $480 for premium economy and $720 for business or first. And again, sorry for that typo. I accidentally forgot to update that. The middle one should say $60 per hour for premium economy. Now, the advantage of booking flights really cheap, remember I referenced who cares money? When you book flights well below the max JGoot recommended price, everything else becomes who cares money. So when we returned from Mexico City, we always check to see if there are upgrades available. And of course there was, and it was $90 for an upgrade that we spent so little on the coach flight. Who cares? You don't need to do the math on that. $90 for an upgrade when you only paid $160 for the flight in the first place is a screaming deal. And that didn't upgrade to premium economy. That was first class. They weren't the fancy lie flat seats. There are rules that you use to determine whether it's a lie flat or a standard recliner, but still a lot more comfortable flight than sitting in the back of the plane in narrow chairs that have minimal recline, etc. And so let's just do the math anyway. We basically we're going to treat this as a one-way flight because we flew out, we used our first half of our round trip flight. Flying back, let's do the math. That was half of $160. That equals $80. So our return flight was basically $80. The first class upgrade was $90 for a total cost of $170. So basically, this was a first class flight. So, we determined $30 an hour because we booked a coach flight. Coming back, is it worth the upgrade fee to upgrade? Now, we didn't need math. It was a screaming deal. We would rather do that. But just for the sake of this exercise, this is a 4-hour return flight at $90 an hour. That means that the max price we should pay is $360. $80 for the one-way portion of the flight plus $90 is $170. That's a screaming deal. Plain and simple. So again, you can see that these are kind of universal rules that you can apply, and I'll go and do a live demo and show you some examples. And by the way, let's figure out where most of our readers are watching from. And so this is another common objection. When we talk about being able to fly to Europe for $50 in business class, and we talk about being able to fly to Asia for $250 round trip in first class, your skepticism is going to kick in. It's like, what's the catch? What's the catch? What's the catch? Well, the catch is you have to proactively seek these deals out. You can't just decide 2.5 months before you're going to go on a vacation, let's go to Cabo from June 4th to June 17th or June 21st or whatever, and hope that there's a good deal waiting for you. It doesn't work that way when you're cherry picking the best 1% of deals out there, whether you're looking for cash or points. You have to proactively seek those deals out. So remember that all of this, the 30, 60, 90 rule, is for Rule 1 trips. And Rule 1 trips are trips that you seek out maybe not every day, but most days. And I included this testimonial from Sage. Sage is also one of our OG coaching clients. He joined, I don't know, he's probably one of the first 50 or so clients that joined us. And he found a trip for 273 round trip. He wasn't planning a trip to Paris. And I'll just read his testimonial. He just says, I just bought the tickets from Paris to LAX, or to Paris from LAX for 273 RT round trip for next March. Dates were on my son's spring break. We weren't planning on anything, but the email popped it, and all our work stopped for an hour while I got tickets booked. We now have our next 3 vacations planned. So normally when you plan a trip over spring break, it's going to take days to find reasonable flights. They did it the other way around. They watched for deals. They found a deal. They looked at their calendar, spent an hour doing that, and booked a flight. So these are deals that you seek out. Will this work if you decide to go to Hawaii in December and start looking 3 months beforehand? Probably not unless you get lucky. So just keep that in mind. So remember, this is for Rule 1 trips only. Look for those best 1% of flights and plan trips around them. And I'm going to go do a demo on that pretty soon. So this is not likely to work for those specific place, specific time trips. Remember, the name of our company is Just Get Out of Town, not just get to Rome during peak season when everyone else is trying to go there. That domain's just too long. And then, so sometimes with those trips, you might get lucky. So still use that 30, 60, 90 test to kind of have an estimate of where that price is. And if it's better than that, snatch that thing up, because it's very, very rare that the planets align so perfectly that when you plan a trip the old-fashioned way, it's going to pass this test. So if it does, grab it. And then, round up if not, because the tighter of a corner you paint yourself into on destination and time, the more you're probably going to have to pay. So does that mean if it doesn't pass the 30, 60, 90 test that it's not a good deal? Depends on how flexible you are. And when you're not flexible, when you don't like the prices of flights that you find, that's what Rule 2 is for. We're not going to talk much about that today because that's a different rule, entirely different rule with using points. But when you have the 2 rules in place, 4 out of 5 of your trips are going to be so cheap that none of your friends will even believe it.
And we do have the favorites so far. It's Chicago and Dallas.
Chicago and Dallas. Okay. Do we have a tiebreaker for it? First comment to say Chicago or Dallas. That's what we'll go with.
Well, Chicago was the most popular, and then
okay. Well, then we'll go with.
There's a tiebreaker.
So the first step you want to do anytime you're looking at a trip is literally just just Google it. You don't even have to actually look up flights and so on. Just Google it. So flight time, and let's say Chicago, and let's go to Europe.
I'm going to make it full screen so we can see it. Okay.
What's that?
I'm going to make it full screen so everybody can see it.
Okay. So flight time from Chicago to Rome. We're just going to Google it. Google says that's 9 hours and 5 minutes. So we'll just call that a 9-hour flight. Here's something interesting. If you're ever booking a one-way flight, remember that planes fly faster going east than west. So if it's just one way, be sure to look it up. So notice that if I type in flight time from Rome to Chicago, it's probably going to be an hour farther. Let's see. Hour and a half. Because wind goes around the world east. And when you fly west, you're flying into the wind. So that slows planes down.
Good point.
So little thing to keep in mind. Not terribly important, pick one, double that time. You don't need to split hairs on getting down to the hour. Remember, these are just rules of thumb. So anyway, let's see. So let's just call this a 10-hour flight for round number's sake. That means that the most we want to pay if we're flying from Chicago to Rome should be $300 round trip in coach. That's a little lofty right now because of COVID, but we're sticking to it. $600 round trip in premium economy, $900 in first class. So now we go to Google Flights and Chicago. It's up in real life and see. Now remember, we're doing we're looking for a specific place. So the odds are going to be pretty slim that I'm going to find something. But let's compare traditional travel, like let's go to Rome in the middle of peak season and see what that is versus let's go somewhere in Europe and see if there's a better deal somewhere else. So instead of specific dates, I'm just going to oh, and by the way, the round trip. So I just did one way, 300 one way, 600 in premium economy, 900 in coach. We want to double that for round trip. So we're looking to see if $600 can be beat flying to Rome. The dates don't matter because I'm going to hit go and then I'm going to do, oh shoot, today. Let me check something. Where's the flexible date option? Of course, as I'm doing live, it's not working for me. What we want to do is find the flexible option. I was just testing this morning and now I'm not seeing it. Hold on one sec.
Keep your comments coming, everyone. We do see them. And as you can see, we have our experts out here. Carrie's answering questions. Anthony's answering questions. So really appreciate that too. If we're not answering them, you can look and see that you'll get responses too.
So the reason I want to find this is because when you just look for specific dates, like this looks like
Tony says explore maybe.
Yeah, let's go. We'll go to explore.
Or
now we're in explore.
Explore, yeah.
It's literally just did
for flexible dates. We have everybody piping in. It's in the calendar for flexible dates. Okay, and I can't. It's click the dates, then switch to flexible dates.
There it is. Okay, thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
And so
Village,
Europe, let's go for 2 weeks. Now, so instead of looking at specific dates, actually, before we do this, let's look at what Chicago to Europe in general is when we paint ourselves into a corner and go during specific times. So let's head on east to Europe. This is coach fares. Come on. I haven't paid more than that in first class. That's just insane. This is what happens when you paint yourself into a corner and say, let's go to Rome or anywhere in Europe during specific times. Now, let's do it the Jay Goot way and turn on the flexible dates feature. Thanks again for helping me find that. Let's look for 2 weeks. So remember these prices. We're looking at like $1,100 to $1,600 round trip for coach. That's obnoxious. Just by being flexible, what did we decide? $600 round trip was a good deal. So I see more than half a dozen, nearly a dozen trips to Europe for $600 just by being flexible. And if you're thinking, well, I can't do that. Well, I mean, okay, that's a luxury you're choosing to do by, painting yourself on a corner on dates. But this is the power of just being flexible on when you go. And you can play around with it. Like these are prices for 2 weeks. You can see what prices are for 1 week trips look like. Still plenty of flights that pass the 30, 60, 90 test. Well, right now they're just passing the $30 per hour test because we're just looking at coach.
Right.
And you can play around with the time, you can play around with the dates, you can play around. You could say, well, we really only have flexible time in June. Okay. Still, if the longer a leash you give to the airlines, the better off you'll be. Now, I was correct. Google was catching up. Nothing under $600 in June. Probably going to have to wait till September to find those. So again, this is kind of a lesson in the 30 to 60, 90 rule, and also a lesson in the more flexible you are, the more likely you're going to find these deals. Google's looking really hard to try to find these deals. Not finding them. I'm going to fast forward to September. I'm willing to bet we'll find a bunch more then. There we go. So, gosh, I wonder if there's a correlation with how long Google takes to find these deals, and then multiply that by like 100 for how long it'll take, or 1,000 for how long it'll take human beings to find them. So let's look. This was the $30 rule. Half a dozen places that are under $600 round trip from Chicago, just by being flexible on when and where you go. By the way, Rome wasn't on that list, but you could fly to Portugal or Budapest and then catch a $50 or $100 Ryanair flight to get you the rest of the way. Let's look at premium economy and see if it passes the $900 round trip test. And let's also go back to being flexible. So wasn't even going to happen in September. Now I'm going to blame this. They're a little wonky on premium economy. I'm going to blame it on that. Maybe if we raise the price, we could find it. Oh, I didn't raise the price up to 600.
There you go.
Now this, to address that earlier question of how can this be accurate? Let's see. It didn't find anything under 600. Let's see if we find anything under 900.
I love how everybody's piping in. Change the price filter. This is a group effort, folks. We appreciate this.
Now remember, this doesn't always work. This is why we look every day. These results are going to be different tomorrow. And I'm going to blame this on premium economy. It's in some airlines databases, it's not in others. And it's especially not in Europe. Let's bump this up to 1,200 for
And
first
Bill, let
class.
me pop this in here. Donna is mentioning it looked like those flights had stopovers. Is that correct? She wanted to know what that had to do with the 3060. So are you factoring that in too?
Nope. Remember, this is just a baseline for determining price.
Okay.
Stopovers or not is a personal preference thing. And again, the more constraints you put on your search, the more you're going to pay. We're showing you how to find the cheapest options possible. Sometimes there's a layover or a stopover, and that's a personal choice. I personally look at stopovers of 12 hours or more as a bonus because I get to go and poke around that country. We did a 6 or 7 hour stopover in Greece. Ran over to the Parthenon, checked it off the list, went back to the airport, and moved on to Turkey.
Perfect. Thank you. I just wanted to clarify that because I think there can be some confusion on stopovers and layovers as opposed to different legs, right? Which, I like that idea of you have a little bit more time to do fun things.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, it really should be for the ticket that you're booking. And if you're doing an open jaw, that's probably 3 different one-way flights that you're booking. And you should calculate those three separately and add them up. But yeah, stopovers, I don't like when I just did that analysis, I wasn't worried about whether or not there was a stopover. We're just looking for like a starting point for where the cheap flights are. So we don't have to spend nearly as much for those flights.
Excellent.
And let's see, let's bump this up to business. So we're looking for a 2-week trip in September up to 1,200. That's looking a little tight. And remember, this doesn't always work. This is why you look every day. Results might be different tomorrow. Results will be different tomorrow. 1,500, I'm surprised. Oh, I took away the flexibility. all. That might be why I wasn't finding premium economy before too. No results. That surprises me. We find, you know, $1,500 first class round trip flights to quite often. Let's just play around. Let's do something called a positioning flight. Let's say you really want to go to New York and you really want to go in first class. Or I'm sorry, I said New York. You really want to go to Europe. Sometimes you do what's called a positioning flight and see if you can find anything that way.
So even though we're still coming from Chicago, we're going to disregard the Chicago to New York leg, right? Because we can probably find something pretty reasonable and just start shopping from New York, correct?
Correct. Yeah, and so that's called a positioning flight, and this is what we do in the point hacking world all the time. Sometimes I'm thinking of visiting my son in Sydney. He's there right now for a summer internship, and flights are so cheap, so few points. I can go there for $80 in taxes each way, so 160 round trip, in business class, and I'm just seeing if I can mess with my calendar to make it happen. And that's a trip I'm going to plan my calendar around because those are rare events. The other thing is I didn't find anything that had less than 2 stopovers from Denver, but I found something direct from LA. So what am I going to do? I'm going to position myself to LA and then take the long 15-hour flight in a seat that turns into a bed.
Yes, please.
So yeah, positioning flights are a very common thing. I'm actually a little embarrassed that I'm not finding anything under that rule. That seems awfully expensive, but sometimes that's the way it works out. There they are. Looks a little pricey to Europe in the next 6 months, but that's what we got.
So what's your advice then? I mean, I agree. This is actually perfect proof that it's not always going to work out how we want. So being flexible.
Yeah. So my advice for this is, first of all, remember, this is rule 1 stuff. These aren't emergency trips that we plan when, 2.5 months before a vacation. This is something we look for every day. So if we don't say anything, no big deal. We check again the next day. And if you are consistent at that, you will find an anomaly every once in a while, and you only need an anomaly. So
I got a little pro tip from Brooke from above, which I love. She says you would need to actually add 300, so it's actually 1,800 to meet the $90 rule, although the London just about meets it at the $90.
Okay. So let's see, 10 hours.
Thanks, Brooke. See, you are good at math, Brooke.
Well, that was when I was at 1,500 and I needed to round up to 1,800. So we had that. But 2 things I would suggest. 1, this is rule 1. If you don't find what you're looking for, look again the next day. All we need, if you find 1 per quarter, you're going to take 4 vacations that are less than any vacations you took before. Guaranteed. Why? Because if they're not, don't book them, because these deals are out there every day if you look for them. So 1, remember that. 2, try positioning airports.
Can I just pop this in here? Somebody said, so, how do we use points in this situation? Would we throw that in there right now? Or we're just talking about rule number 1, though? Today
is rule number 1. Points are an entirely different search process. So we don't really have time to go into that. But, you always look for the cash deals first. And then if you don't find what you're looking for, then you resort to points and you use entirely different strategies.
And there we go. Thanks, Kate, for that, Katie. That's not the topic for today. That's exactly what we just said, but that's what we teach that in the book. Hi, Katie. Good to see you.
And let's bring up our boot camp for this. A lot of people want to jump in and get their question answered, but there are 1,000 different little strategies that kind of add up to getting proficient at the world of traveling for free or traveling for an average of 60 to 90% less. There's no one little trick, and that's why we wrote the book. The book is goes from A to Z, and it talks about how to travel the Jagut way. And traveling the Jagut way does mean averaging 60 to 90% less than what everyone else is paying traveling the traditional way. And there are lots of little things that you read, you put into practice. You reread, you put into practice. You get better and better and better. The purpose of our weekend boot camp is to get a bunch of those little tips lined up for your personal needs and kind of level up your game in a weekend. So if you haven't checked out our live event, comment live event. We've got over 300 people coming as it is. We've got room for about 400. And we don't want this to be cramped auditorium seating. It's going to be banquet seating. So we're capped at about 400 people.
And that's going to be August 5th and 6th, first weekend of August here in Denver. Well, here when I'm back in Denver. I don't know where I am. That's the Jagut way.
I heard, what do you recommend in these cases where you don't find what you're looking for? Sometimes you can string together different first one-way trips. So if you don't find what you're looking for round trip, try one way. Same rule, Chicago, we're seeing what we can find in business, 10 hours at $90 an hour. The most we want to pay is $900. There are a couple that we can get there. And remember, a lot of these flights, you can get yourself to the continent and then book a $50 or $100 flight to get the rest of the way. So that's business. Economy, same thing. $200 one way. So some pretty good deals. That can be how you get yourself to Rome. That would barely beat, you could just beat the $600 rule for 20 hours of flight, flying in economy. So there are all sorts of ways to, adjust if you don't find what you're looking for.
I love this comment from Katie. I always search one-way legs. She likes to put her own trips together better than what Google and Kayak spits out for her. So I agree. That is kind of fun to be able to sort of work with those little individual legs too, right?
Yeah. Well, so let's just play with a couple other examples from Chicago. So let's just say you've got, you want to go to Asia. So Chicago to, let's just say Tokyo. 13 hours. Woohoo. What is that? So let's look at one way. So $30, that's $390 one way. It's pretty lofty.
And tell us if we're using the wrong math, someone. We're flying blind over here. I think that's right.
So that's lofty. I would not pay that to fly to Tokyo in coach. I wouldn't even pay that in business class because I'm pretty good at collecting points and using them when I need them. But as a Jagut rule, this is an example of nothing there. Let's look again later. $300 times 13 is $390 is the most we want to pay. If we really want to get there, $547 isn't terribly off. You could experiment with going there from New York. That surprises me that the prices haven't changed. And you could experiment from other areas. So that's kind of option one. You could even get yourself to the West Coast. This is probably where you're going to have better odds of success. Oops. Hey, look at that. So that's still a little high because you got to pay to get to California, but we're getting a lot closer. We saved $400 round trip by positioning. So plenty of options to get to Asia, or I should say a few options to get to Asia. Look at that, $2,000 in coach. This is why we're adjusting the rule as well. And remember, a lot of these are optimistic goals because this isn't your standard, I want to go to this place at this time. This is you're searching out the best 1% of deals. And when you see something that stands out to you, then you consider it. Maybe you give up on Asia and consider Hawaii instead, because you can fly there for $300 round trip. And Hawaii, and I switched to Los Angeles, but Los Angeles to Hawaii, nonstop, 5.5 hours. So 11 hours round trip, call it 10 because returning will be faster. That's pay no more than $300. So that's dead on. Let's just roll the dice and see what it would cost to fly in business. Oh, that's actually a screaming deal. Nope, that's dead on. That's $900 round trip, which is the most you want to pay for LA to Hawaii in business or first class. So again, these are rules of thumb. I wasn't dead. I was well under in some cases. I was a little over in other cases, but these are all just benchmarks that you can use by doing that, you can know at a glance, like, ooh, is this a good deal that I should dig deeper on, or can I just afford to continue to wait? That's kind of the idea here. So I hope that helped. The beauty of Google is you can bounce around. You can, definitely the big takeaway here is leave that destination blank. That's how you're going to find those screaming deals. Let the flight deals determine your vacation, and you will spend 60 to 90% less without any need for points whatsoever. And the beauty of doing that is half-ish of your vacations are cash because they're such good deals. You'd be stupid to waste points. And you let your points accumulate. You get to use your points for big bougie things like first class flights, lie flat seats, way more luxurious hotels, etc.
I have this comment popped here. I love this would be a nice accent question to all that, because I know this is always a burning question, and not everyone can travel like Katie, which is with a backpack, which I love. But how do you calculate additional baggage fees into the flight cost? Like, how do you put that?
So that's on a per case basis. Most of international airlines sometimes have baggage allowances, others don't. But Google allows you to check a box, and they'll calculate that into the price as well. It doesn't work with Kayak Explore. I actually like Kayak Explore better, but as I explained in the book, there are pros and cons to each. Kayak Explorer will find better deals. That's the pro than Google. Like, you will find better deals in Coach on Kayak than I just found in Google, because they're actually more flexible on the dates. Google is painting us into a corner of 2-week trips, 1-week trips. So they're very, they don't get to play with the algorithm on best outbound and best return. They find the best of both that are exactly 14 days apart or exactly 7 days apart. And that's going to limit your pricing options.
Okay, great. That's what you were just in Google. They were just showing there's in the search piece, we can check a box for luggage then.
Correct.
Okay, awesome.
Either that or just add it in your head. If you're going to have carry-ons or bags, add $100 per person for round trip bags that you got to check.
I know, and that helps you pack lighter, I think.
Yeah, that too. We've done both. We've paid for bags. We've checked. Michelle packed in a carry-on for a 16-day trip to Greece.
Wait, who did?
So it is possible. And she likes her shoes, and shoes take up a lot of space.
Oh, I love that. And Katie, thank you, our pack queen. So does Kayak once you pull up the actual flight. Okay. Love it. I'm glad we asked that. That's excellent.
Yeah. So Kayak, Google does a lot more up front. Kayak, you got to dig in once you find the flight. You got to manually look up business class. You got to manually look up the flight and then check the bag option. But yeah, it's just a case-by-case basis.
Awesome. Thank you.
So all of that to talk about saving money and traveling more and maybe first class and so on. I want to kind of close with one final thought and just kind of share that, like, this isn't just about traveling more. When I started this company, that's technically what it was, but it was because, I was going through a divorce. I was living on less than half of the income and supporting two households, and I refused to give up travel. Um, and but in the process, what I found out is that it's not just about traveling more. It's not just about bougie accommodations. This is about friends and family and spending more time with people you love, getting to know other people in other cultures. And I literally stumbled across this. I pulled this picture up and I got a little sentimental. This was a trip that planned itself. Why? Because of $29 round trip flights. This was when Michelle and I were first dating. That's Michelle. This is her parents. That's her brother and sister-in-law, her best friends from grade school. And this was the first time I met most of them. We took this trip because I found $29 flights. We were getting pretty serious. I knew this was going to happen. So why not proactively go when we found $30 flights instead of saying, let's go during some specific time that is going to be $300 flights? So that was the only reason we went. And this picture was just kind of like a fun little joke because everyone was talking. They thought there was going to be a big announcement. It was like, nah, we're $30 flights. We thought we'd come out and see you guys. So that's my brother and sister-in-law. And I'm going to get really sappy right here. That's Matt and Henji, who I met for the first time about 8 years ago. And this is them 2 weeks ago in Mexico City. We found, we went to Mexico City. We found such a great deal. We got 2-bedroom place and we invited friends and family to come visit us. So, it's not just about traveling more. It's not just about cheap seats on planes or bougie upgrades or whatever. It's about seeing friends and family more and spending time with the people that are important to you that you might not have otherwise done, just like that trip. Matt and Angie wouldn't have ever even dreamt of coming to Mexico City, but free place with locals semi-locals who had been on the ground a month before and we'll show them around. They were on a plane. Coincidentally, this is Angela and her husband, and Mark and Kristen. Those are Michelle's best friends from grade school. That's us on a friendcation tradition that got started because Mark started looking every day. He found $150 flights from Indiana and said, I found cheap flights to Turks and Caicos. Who else wants to go? We all went. Because of look every day. None of us were planning on going to Turks and Caicos. None of us were even planning a trip. This was a 4-day trip over Martin Luther King weekend. And we got all 4 of our families together, or all 8 of our families together, and rented a place and hung out and made memories in Turks and Caicos. And we're going on our 6th one this summer to Italy. And that was a fun little brokered trade. Our friends rented the villa in Tuscany. We're using points to help the other friends get there. And we're going on our 6th friendcation that has all started because of just looking every day. So that's all I've got. I would encourage you to get our book. That's kind of the best way to get an idea of the Jagut way of travel. It is really more of a philosophy than a set of tips and tricks. But when you apply it, you will start traveling more. You will start traveling more comfortably. If you like that, come and check out our weekend boot camp that's happening this summer. And if you like that, we'd love to have you in our coaching program. It's not cheap. It's not for everyone, but that's the whole idea of the book. That is a minimal investment. The weekend boot camp, that's a little bigger investment. And our coaching program, if you like the way we travel.
So comment book, comment event, and then I actually pulled this comment up. I love this this one. Appreciate your attitude towards friends and family. Lori, thanks for that comment. And I think this is when Joel became the man with the family. There's all these examples. Joel was the man. That's really, thank you for telling that story. I love that.
Yeah, it really is like that was what inspired me to start the company because, even my friends didn't really believe the prices we were paying, and I wasn't even into the points thing back then.
Right, right. Yeah, now look at 8 years later what you all are doing. Okay, so comment book, and then comment event, and then also comment interested if you want more information about the lounge, and we'll set up a call with you. Now, this is not an instant thing. We just want to make sure it's a fit for both you and for the lounge, and what your lifestyle is going to be like, or what you're looking to do. So just comment interested on that, or event, or book, and I think we're going to do our giveaway, right?
Okay.
We have a lot of comments. We have a lot more than usual. So we have at this point 459 comments. I'm going to do the random number generator. Are you ready?
All right.
That's my drum roll. Comment number 322. So Brooke from above is going to let us know who that winner is, and she'll comment later and get in touch with you. It's for the $100 travel savings card, which you can use at a lot of different places. I think it's really fun. And if you've actually won a travel savings card and used it, and you're watching this or watching the replay, just comment and let us know what you used it for. Be kind of fun. Right?
Yeah.
All right, take a deep breath. That was a lot of talking and searching. You did great.
Fun stuff. Yeah, I worked without a net on the live demos, and I think we're about 50-50 on success. But again, that's probably good. Like this doesn't always work. That's why we look every day. Because the deals are out there, and you just gotta know when and where to look for them.
And that was a live demo, which I absolutely love too. So as soon as this ends, you'll be able to watch the replay. We'll be back next week. We have things coming up in the lounge. If you're a lounge member, check your emails. There's always something fun going on. Happy hour on Wednesday nights where we all get together and chat. Do we have a presentation this week, or?
Yeah, we've got a guest, Tim Kinn. He is from Rome Travel. So we've got a lot of founders of companies who will come and do private presentations for our group members. Yeah, he's showing up Wednesday. We're pretty excited about that. That's one that helps with Rule 2, stretching those points as far as possible.
And that's Rome, ROAME. I like that little switch on it.
Yeah.
So we'll be in our group this week. So, all right, y'all, that's it. We'll see you next week. Thanks for tuning in. Say it, Joel.
Happy travels.
Bye.